If it's a God thing, you are going to need a team. Expect the opposition because baby, it's gonna come. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. My name's theTILAGO. If you're new around here, I talk about all things faith, the faith journey, and living in and on purpose. And we are right in the middle of a series here on the channel where we're talking about how to build the thing that God is calling you to build in the way that He is calling you to build it. And we're walking through the book of Nehemiah in order to pull out some principles and practical things that we need to be doing if we're going to build that thing the right way, the godly way, God's way. Just for a little bit of context, if you're somebody who knows you are supposed to be building something in this season, God is calling you to build a business or a brand or a community or something like that, then this is absolutely the series for you, because we find Nehemiah here in this book as someone who has gone back to lead the people in rebuilding the walls all around Jerusalem. The people of Israel have come out of exile and now they're back in Jerusalem. They need the walls rebuilt, okay? And so this is a really good book that you can find a lot of practical things that we can do in order to build the thing that God is calling us to build in the way He's calling us to build it, as we just kind of learn more about how Nehemiah went about leading the people in doing this, okay? So if you missed the first video in this series, you absolutely have to go back and watch it. I'll link it up here so that you can get all the context in this book that I shared, and so that you can get the first 3 principles or practical things that we need to do. Today, we're going to dig into 3 more practical things that we need to be doing in order to build that thing in the way that God is calling us to build it. So let's get right into it. Okay, so in the first video, we talked a lot about what was happening in chapter 1, and we went into chapter 2 a little bit. Today, we're going to start at the end of chapter 2, go into chapter 3 and chapter 4 a little bit. Okay, so the first thing we want to pull out as a practical thing that we need to be doing if we are going to build the thing that God is calling us to build in the way He's calling us to build it, then you are going to have to wait to reveal what you are doing until God tells you to. Wait to reveal the thing that you are building until God tells you to reveal it to the people He tells you to reveal it to. So now this is coming from chapter 2, where we see Nehemiah has shown up in Jerusalem. He stayed there for 3 days, probably parlayed a little bit with his friends. I don't know. The Bible doesn't tell us that, but that's what I think he was doing. But he gets there, and then at night, he doesn't tell anyone where he is going or anyone about what he's doing there. And he goes and he examines the walls. He examines those walls that have been damaged, that have been burned with fire. And he's going and pretty much like counting the cost of this thing that he is about to do, that he believes God has called him to do, right? And so he goes and he says that he doesn't tell anyone. He says no one knows what he was doing. He does this at night. And he even goes through some of these like places that were harder to get around and get to in order to examine the full wall. But it's just so cool. I love how it says that he didn't tell anyone what he was doing, because it was really something that he decided, like, no, I'm going to make sure that this is what God is calling me to do. I'm going to go see how much work we got to do here. Like, I'm going to go and continue to do a lot of the research in this, right? And so I talked about in the first video where he was setting a plan, where we have to set a plan. But I was saying that sometimes you don't know the full vision of what you're going to have to do, or, you know, that what God is calling you to do, but you know you need to set a plan at least. So I'm like, I know Nehemiah probably set like some kind of plan in his mind, that even without seeing the walls or seeing the damage, he was like, I think it's going to be like this. I think it's going to be like that. But in order to go and confirm or to revise his plan, he had to go and see what needed to be done, right? So you want to make sure you are keeping this thing close until God tells you to reveal it to somebody, so that the plan that you are setting is one that is only between you and God first and foremost, before you have outside voices coming in and things like that, right? So again, that first principle is we really want to wait to reveal the thing that God is telling us to do until He tells us to reveal it. Because then we do find in the end of chapter 2 that he does go and tell the people, hey, this is what I've been doing. I've gone around and I've seen these walls, and I've seen how much despair this city is in because of this. So we've got to rebuild these walls. He goes and he tells, it says in chapter 2, verse 17, it says, then I said to them, you see the trouble we are in. Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace. I also told them about the gracious hand of God on me and what the king said to me. So even in that piece, like, he hadn't even got there and told them about what the king had said and how the king had sent him and granted him favor to come and help them or lead them in rebuilding this wall. And these are things that he goes and he tells the officials, right? So He waits to tell them until after he has examined, he's set a plan, and he's already, determined like, no, this is what I'm supposed to do. So you want to do the same thing. You don't really want a whole bunch of outside noise. You don't want to, go and try to get confirmation from other people. You want to go and be like, okay, God, this is me and you. This is what you called me to do. I'm going to go and do some more research. I'm going to go see if this is what you really want me to do. And then I'll start revealing it so that people can start helping in the way that they are supposed to. But first, I'm going to make sure it's cool and it's good and it's solid between me and God. The next thing that you are absolutely going to have to do if you're going to build that thing in the way that God is calling you to build it, then you have got to get a team. If it is a God thing, then that means it's bigger than you. That means it's going to take more than you to make it come to fruition. And so we can really see this all throughout the book where Nehemiah, or this book, names the different people, the different groups of people, the different families, the different clans, the different everything who are stationed around the wall and what they are doing exactly in order to help rebuild the wall. You have got to build a team. You've got to get a squad around you in order to make sure that you are going to make this thing come to pass in the way that God is calling you to do it. Again, it's bigger than you, right? And so anything that is bigger than you is going to need more than you. It's going to need more energy. It's going to need more wisdom. It's going to need more knowledge. It's going to need just more than you. And so you want to make sure that you are praying about who are the people that can help me do this? Who are the people around me? Who are the people that I'm noticing? Who are the people that God is bringing to my mind that are going to help me to make this thing a reality, right? And it's okay to need help. We are crafted for community, right? And that even means crafted for community in purpose. I love how Paul talks about this a lot in the New Testament over and over, where he says we need all parts of the body in order to accomplish the work that God has called us to do, right? So that means we need all the arms, we need all the legs, we need all the eyes, we need all the noses, we need all the pieces of the body in order to accomplish our good work, the work that we are called to. And that absolutely pertains to when we are called to build something in the way of a business, a brand, or a community, right? And I think there's also a piece of that helps you to be humble, right? Because if it was just you building it, then you would try to give yourself all the credit and say that I did this and I built this and I. And that's just not the way of the kingdom. We want to be a team. We want to bring a full picture of who God is, and we want to have the full power of who God is, right? And so I believe that he works beautifully in different people in different ways, right? But we need all those different ways and different things to come together to make something full, right? And to make it perfect and to make it exactly what God wants it to be. So you're going to need a team. And really vulnerably, I can even say that it's hard for me to ask for help. It's hard for me to say that I need people to help me to do X, Y, and Z, because some days I really do feel like I can just conquer the world and do it all myself, right? But that is just not a reality. And so I have been so graced in building this community that I've been talking about, to have already seen a few women who God has just illuminated to me and said, hey, these are the ones that I have called to help you in this season. They may not be here forever, or they may have other things that they have to go build or other things they have to go do. But for right now, I need you to ask these specific women if they will help you. And all of them said yes, which was so beautiful. And I'm just so grateful and so excited about what I get to see in them too, like how this is a space where I'm creating space for them to also show up as their full selves and show up with their gifting and show up with their talents, right? Because who's to say like that if I had not asked them, like maybe they wouldn't have had a space to use their gifts and their talents and things like that until a later date. But this is the time where I feel like God is calling them to, stand up in their purpose and in their callings and in their giftings. And I get to be the one to be a vessel to create a space for them to use that, to do that and to use their giftings and things here. And so it's just like, in order to see the full beauty of God, this is one of the ways that we get to see it, by creating teams and by building things together with other believers who have one common goal, and that is to bring God the glory, right? You want to make sure that whoever you were calling on, whoever you were pulling into this team, has the right intentions, has the right heart, has the right mindset, and already has a vision and a revelation of what is supposed to happen with this certain thing. So I love how Nehemiah or this book lists out all these different names. I mean, I was reading it, and every time I read it, I'm like, this is a lot of people. This is a lot of people that are, coming together to do all these different things. And so I absolutely believe in this. And this is something that keeps popping up for me and in my life, especially as I'm building, like I said, that you are going to need to build a team. So you're not just building the thing, you're going to also need to build a team, which we can talk about this in another video, but that means you're going to have to grow in leadership, right? You're going to have to grow in your skills of how to lead people, how to communicate, how to show up for people, how to give people space, right? But again, we'll talk about that in another video. Today, I just wanted to tell you, you're going to need a team. Okay, if we move into chapter 4 of Nehemiah, we get to see the next thing that we are going to need to do if we are going to build this thing in the way God has called us to build it, and that is to expect opposition. If you are going to build something that's bigger than yourself, if you're going to build something that God has called you to build, you are going to need to start expecting opposition for sure. Now, in this book, we actually already see the opposition start around like chapter 2, whenever Nehemiah goes and asks the king if he can leave and go to Jerusalem. But in chapter 4 is where we really start to get a fuller picture, where the opposition really starts to show up. So we're seeing these two really prominent names in this book. I hope I'm saying them right, but Sanballat and Tobiah are the two officials who are the ones who are opposing, who are really coming against what Nehemiah and the people of Israel are trying to do. And so they show up here in chapter 4 where they are really coming at them. They're coming, and they first were ridiculing them and mocking them and saying, like, what do they think they're about to do? Like, how do they think they're about to build these walls? And now Nehemiah clapped back in chapter 3 or so. Like, he actually did say, like, oh no, we're going to do this, and you're not going to have any, stake or claim in what we do. And they even go so far as to plot to fight against the Israelites while they're trying to rebuild the wall, like just real foul, right? And so we see here that Nehemiah is prepared, like, but it seems like as he was absolutely continuing to get wisdom from God and how to handle things, right? Because we see that he tells the people, hey, you're going to build this wall, but you also need to be equipped and ready with your spears and with your weapons and things ready to fight, just in case these people try to come up against us while we are still building. And he starts devising a plan of like, okay, half of you are going to build while half of you are, at watch. And then he's like, all of us are going to stay home rather than go out into, the countryside and things like that. Like, we're going to stay in here so that we are all ready to protect our families, ready to protect the whole city in case anything tries to come up against us. And so you've got to be the same way with the thing that you are building, or when you are building. You got to be ready and on guard for opposition, because number one, the enemy absolutely doesn't want you to build the thing that you were going to build, because he knows just how impactful and powerful it is going to be, and how influential it is supposed to be, and how much glory it is supposed to bring to God. And even in that same lane, there are going to be people who are going to be like trying to come against you, whether you know what they are saying or not. There are going to be people who are like, why would she do that? Or why would he start trying to build that? Or who does he think he is? Or whatever. And they're just going to keep trying to say all kinds of stuff and spew it at you. And they might even try to say it on the slick, right? Like, even try to send you things and say like, well, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? And it's like they can frame it as if they are trying to help you, but they really are just coming against your plan and the thing that God has called you to do. So you got to be on guard and ready for those things as well. And then the last thing you really got to be ready for is that opposition that's going to come internally. You are going to start having those moments of doubt and fear and confusion. And you're going to be the person who's coming against yourself in some ways if you are not already on guard for that thing, right? Now, it's funny that this is one of the practical tips that we are pulling out today, because this is one I've absolutely been experiencing very recently, aka this week, as I've been building this community. Like, this is the week where I've been having the comments coming toward, to my phone and to my inbox of people that I don't even know. This is the week where I've been having the enemy try to come with the doubt and the fear and the confusion. This is the week where all of these things have been coming up, but I'm so grateful that I had already read Nehemiah. And this is one of the ones that had really been sticking out to me, because I said, okay, Tiff, you got to get ready, because there is going to be opposition. This is not going to be sunshine, rainbows, and butterflies the whole time through. You're going to have to be on guard, because this is kingdom business. This is something that you are doing for God, and you're trying to advance the kingdom forward. So of course there's going to be something trying to push you back. There's going to be people trying to push you back. So get ready. So I've had to do all those things that I just said to you. I've had to stand guard with the prayers. I've had to stand guard with the scripture just on hand and on my heart, right? I've had to be ready. And so you also want to be ready with whatever it is that you need. And everything you need is found in God, right? So you've got to be ready with prayer, staying in the prayer closet, staying, consecrated, and really just like staying rooted. You got to stay in your word. Okay. You got to have that stored up in your heart so that you can use it in those moments where you know that something is not of God. You got to be like, no, that don't sound like what God would say, or that don't sound like how God would, move and shake in my life. So you got to stay in your word. You got to stay surrounded by people who are actually supporting and encouraging you, right? So again, that's that's why it's really important to have a team, because even this week, y'all, I've had to reach out to some on the team and be like, hey, like, I just need you to pray. Like, I just need you to go into your secret place and pray for me and pray for this thing that we are doing, because there's opposition that I am facing. So don't try to face that opposition alone. Like, actually let other people in with you so that they can fight with you, right? And so again, as they're helping you to build, they're also going to help you to fight, right? Like, if it's the right people, if it's the people that God has called to help you with this thing, then they're going to be equipped with everything, right? So they're going to be the ones who are like, I'm ready, I'm graced to fight with you. I'm ready, I'm graced to build with you. I'm ready, I'm graced to do whatever it is that God is calling us to do. I'm graced to do it too. And I believe it. And I'm here for it, right? So again, you really want to make sure that you are expecting the opposition that is going to come, because it is surely going to come. Okay, y'all, we just really kind of zoomed through like 2.5 chapters of Nehemiah in order to pull out some principles and practical things that we can do if we're going to build the thing God is calling us to build in the way he's called us to build it. Now, listen, I want y'all to really go read the scripture. I don't know how many times I can say that, but seriously, go read it for yourself so that you can see exactly what God is trying to say directly to you, because he wants to speak to you about that thing that you are building. But I believe, again, that this is absolutely a book that you have got to dig into if you are supposed to be building something, and if you're trying to figure out how to do it in the way that God has called you to build it. So I hope that you got something out of this video. I hope it was encouraging and empowering, and again, gave you a little kick into gear in order to go get started in doing that thing that God has called you to do and building it in the way he's called you to build it. If you did get anything from today's video, then definitely drop down in the comments today and let me know what you got, what stuck out to you most. And then, of course, if you like this video, then give it a thumbs up and absolutely subscribe if you are not already. We would love to have you join the family, and we're going to continue walking through this book. We've got a few more chapters to dig into. We're going to talk a little bit more about opposition because it keeps showing up in this book, and so we'll dig a little bit deeper into that. And until I see you again, bye.